Imagine a doctor, someone who studied for years, took an oath to first do no harm. And now that same doctor, in the darkest rooms of history, orders innocent people to be treated like laboratory rats, not to heal them, but in the name of science and a superior race. This is a true story. In December 1946, exactly 1 year after the end of World War II, in the city of Nuremberg, Germany, one of the most important trials in human history took place. A trial that did not judge soldiers or politicians, but doctors. 23 defendants, nearly all physicians and scientists, accused of crimes so horrific that the world still trembles at their mention. This trial became known as the Doctors Trial, the first time the global medical community was forced to confront the darkest side of its own profession. In this long and detailed documentary, we will take you step by step inside the courtroom. We will examine what these doctors did, why they did it, how they defended themselves, and what justice ultimately answered. This is not just a history lesson. This is a story about the thin line between science and crime, about the power of ideology over humanity, and about why today, when we visit a doctor, we expect ethics and humanity to come first. One of the main defendants, Karl Brandt, was Adolf Hitler's personal physician. He and his colleagues sacrificed thousands of human beings in the name of scientific progress. But did science really advance, or was humanity simply destroyed? We will explore this together. But first, I must warn you, this is a sensitive topic. We are talking about real crimes against humanity. If you are ready, join me as we travel back to 1946. This trial was officially called United States of America versus Karl Brandt et al., known as the Doctors Trial. It was one of the 12 subsequent trials after the main Nuremberg trial of Nazi leaders. But why doctors? Because during World War II, Nazi medicine not only supported the war effort, it became a killing machine itself. From experiments on twin children to submerging people in ice water for hours, all done in the name of the fatherland and science. But before we go into the details, let's understand how we got here. To truly understand why German doctors committed such crimes, we must go back a little. The story begins when Nazi ideology merged with medical science. After Germany's defeat in World War I, the country fell into deep economic and psychological crisis. Many Germans were looking for a savior. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power with promises of a greater Germany and a pure race. The important point is that the Nazis put science at the service of their ideology. They believed humans were like horses or dogs, with superior and inferior races. They called this eugenics, or racial improvement. Unfortunately, this idea was not unique to Germany, but the Nazis took it to an extreme and horrific level. In 1933, just months after Hitler came to power, the law for the prevention of hereditarily diseased offspring was passed. Under this law, over 400,000 people, mainly those with mental or physical disabilities, were forcibly sterilized. German doctors carried out these procedures. They believed they were improving society. This was only the beginning. In 1939, a secret program called T4 began. Its goal was the merciful death of disabled, elderly, or those the Nazis considered lives unworthy of life. Thousands of children and adults were killed by injection or gas. Doctors and nurses participated in this crime. Karl Brandt, Hitler's personal physician, was one of the main leaders of this program. Later, he also coordinated human experiments in the concentration camps. When World War II began in 1939, everything became worse. Germany invaded neighboring countries and took millions of prisoners. Now Nazi doctors had a new opportunity: access to human bodies for experimentation. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, was very interested in these experiments. He ordered doctors to conduct tests in concentration camps, such as Dachau, Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and Ravensbrück. The goals were twofold: to help the German army and to advance Nazi racial ideology. German doctors who had once sworn the Hippocratic Oath now felt complete freedom inside the camps. There were no laws, no ethics. Prisoners were nothing more than laboratory objects to them. These experiments continued until 1945, when the war ended. But when the Allies defeated Germany, they decided to hold accountable not only the soldiers and politicians, but also those behind the medical crimes. And so, in December 1946, the doctor's trial began.
Now that we understand the historical background, it is time to meet the main figures of this trial. A total of 23 people were tried in the doctor's trial, 20 of whom were physicians or medical specialists. These were educated individuals with doctoral degrees and, in many cases, high social status. Karl Brandt was the most important defendant. He was Adolf Hitler's personal physician and head of the SS medical services. Brandt was the main person responsible for the T4 program. Sigmund Rascher was one of the most infamous figures in this story. He was an SS doctor at Dachau concentration camp and conducted the notorious high-altitude and freezing experiments. Karl Klauberg was a gynecologist who carried out large-scale sterilization experiments at Auschwitz. Horst Schumann also worked on sterilization, but using X-rays. Herta Oberhauser was the only female defendant. She was a doctor at Ravensbrück concentration camp and participated in the sulfanilamide experiments. Joseph Mengele, although not present in court, was mentioned many times. He was the chief doctor at Auschwitz and conducted the infamous experiments on twins. In addition, there were doctors like Walter Beigelbuch and Wilhelm Beigelbuch. What they all had in common was that they used their scientific positions to serve the Nazi regime. Many of them had studied at prestigious German universities. They published scientific papers and considered themselves scientists. But in court, when faced with evidence, most of them said, "We were only following orders." These 23 individuals represented hundreds of German doctors who worked within the Nazi system. Now it is time to see exactly what crimes they committed.
Now we come to the most difficult part of this story, the crimes. The accused doctors conducted various experiments in different concentration camps. These experiments mainly fell into two categories: those supposedly intended to help the German army, and those intended to advance Nazi racial ideology. At Dachau concentration camp, the famous high-altitude experiments were conducted. Doctors placed prisoners in special chambers where air pressure was reduced to simulate very high altitudes. Another experiment at the same camp involved freezing. Prisoners were placed in ice-cold water for many hours or left in freezing conditions. The seawater experiment was also conducted at Dachau. Doctors tried to find ways to make seawater drinkable. In several camps, prisoners were deliberately infected with diseases such as malaria, typhus, tuberculosis, and hepatitis to test new vaccines and medicines. At Ravensbrück, sulfanilamide experiments were performed. This drug was used to treat wound infections. Dr. Karl Klauberg and his colleagues experimented on women at Auschwitz. They injected chemicals into their bodies to disable the reproductive system. Dr. Horst Schumann used X-rays to sterilize young men and women. One of the most well-known cases was Dr. Joseph Mengele's experiments on twins at Auschwitz. It is important to know that all these experiments were conducted without the prisoner's consent and in complete violation of medical ethics. These experiments were not only morally wrong, but many of them had little scientific value. When the Allies liberated the camps, they found thousands of documents, photographs, and reports. These records were later used as evidence in the doctor's trial.
After the end of World War II in 1945, the Allies decided not to judge only the political and military leaders of the Nazis. One of these trials, the Doctor's Trial, began on December 9, 1946 in the city of Nuremberg. The trial was run by the Americans. 3 main judges and a presiding judge were present. The 23 defendants sat in special docks. In the first days, the prosecutors outlined the general framework. They stated that German doctors, by abusing their positions and knowledge, had violated the basic principles of medicine. One of the strongest parts of the trial was the testimony of survivors and witnesses. The defendants and their lawyers presented several main arguments: superior orders, military necessity, comparison with the Allies, and scientific progress. The judges rejected these defenses one by one. The doctor's trial lasted about 140 days. More than 85 witnesses testified, and thousands of documents were examined. This trial not only addressed specific crimes, but also sent an important message to the world. Medicine must always serve humanity, not ideology or power. After months of court sessions, the time for verdicts arrived. On August 19, 1947, the judges announced the final sentences. 7 people were sentenced to death by hanging. 9 people received long prison sentences. 7 people were acquitted. Among those sentenced to death were Karl Brandt and Sigmund Rascher. The executions took place on October 16, 1947, at Landsberg Prison. Herta Oberhauser was sentenced to 20 years, but was released after 10. Josef Mengele, who was absent from the trial, was never captured. The issuance of these verdicts was not the complete end of the story. Many victims and survivors felt that justice was not fully served. However, despite these shortcomings, the doctors' trial achieved something significant. For the first time in modern history, it placed medical ethics at the center of international discussion.
With the end of the executions and the closing of the doctor's trial, a dark chapter of history ended, but a new chapter of reflection and learning began. One of the most important achievements of this trial was the creation of the Nuremberg Code in 1947. This document contains 10 simple but powerful principles that are still taught in every medical school today. This code later inspired the Declaration of Helsinki and many international human rights laws. Key ethical lessons for today. Science without ethics is dangerous. Absolute power corrupts. Silence is also a sin. Being human is more important than any ideology. We still face ethical challenges in medicine today. The Nuremberg Code reminds us that humanity must always remain at the center. The story of the Nuremberg Doctors Trial is a dark story, but it is also a story of hope. Hope that humanity can learn from past mistakes. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this long documentary. History tells us, vigilance is always necessary. Let us never sacrifice humanity for anything.